There's some things in life that you don't choose. You don't choose where you were born. You don't choose who you were born to. Maybe some of you liked where you were born. Some of you maybe didn't like where you were born. Some of you were born into good situations. Others of you were born into hard situations. You don't get to choose. You don't get to choose the genetics that are passed down to you. Maybe some of you have never really been sick your entire life, and maybe others of you were born with an illness that has plagued you your whole life. We don't choose the pain or the sufferings that come into our life. That was certainly the case for the man in our gospel reading from Mark chapter 1 today. This man had leprosy, and leprosy was not something you wanted in the New Testament. It was a skin disease that perhaps was pretty painful, but the societal effects of having this disease were maybe even worse. You were considered an outcast from society if you had leprosy, because you had to live apart from everyone else. And even when you were approaching someone on the road, you had to yell "unclean, unclean" before you approached them, just so they knew that you had this skin disease. You had to wear tattered clothes. You had to cover your face. You were the living dead, for lack of a better way of saying it. It was a really tough life being someone with leprosy. Yet this man in our story today, we can learn something from him. Because you don't hear him complaining. He doesn't come to Jesus, the God of all the universe, the God who knit him together in his mother's womb. You don't hear him complaining about the raw hand that he was dealt. You don't hear him saying that somehow God owes him something now because he has put up with this suffering throughout his life. He doesn't act like he deserves anything because he knows he doesn't. Instead, he approaches Jesus with great humility. In our text it says, a man with leprosy came to Jesus and begged him on his knees. He took a posture of humility. He truly, in his heart, knew that he deserved nothing from Jesus. And so he got on his knees and he begged him. And if you're not convinced that this man was in a position of humility at this point, what he says next will prove it to you. He says, if you are willing. If you are willing. Maybe one of the most profound statements in Mark's gospel. If you are willing. How often do we expect things from God? How often do we go to him in prayer and expect that he's just going to give us these things? Even with something that he has promised, we expect it. We maybe take advantage of his grace because we do expect it. Yet what we learn about grace is, right, that it's undeserved. It's unmerited. He doesn't have to give it to us. And so perhaps we should ask, just like this man with leprosy, if you are willing. If you are willing, Lord, you can do this for me. If you are willing, you can wash me clean of all of my sins. If you are willing, you can give me grace, undeserved, unmerited grace. Another thing we can learn from this man with leprosy is this. He says, if you are willing, you can make me clean. This man did not only come with humility, knowing that he didn't deserve anything from Jesus, but he came believing that Jesus had the power to do what he was asking him to do. So, couldn't we approach Jesus the same way? With a sense of humility, knowing that we don't deserve anything from him, but also a sense of trust, that he has the power to do what we are asking him to do, and that he wants to. That we know that he wants to because he is love and he has promised us these things. And Jesus showed love to this man. It says, filled with compassion, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. Immediately, the leprosy left him and he was cured. Jesus, true God, cured this man. He was willing to help him, and he is willing to help you too. So come to Jesus with humility and trust that he can do what he has promised to do, and that he can do what you are asking him